Greetings, I'm Mark Gaduldi-Gutrovsky, the publisher of PortsmouthCityWatch.org. PortsmouthCityWatch.org is an alternate electronic media news site interested in issues that affect the citizens of Portsmouth, Virginia. On Tuesday, June the 9th, there will be two primaries in which citizens of Portsmouth can vote. One is in the 79th House of Delegates District. The other is in the Virginia Senate 14th District. Following this introduction is an interview with one of the candidates in the Senate race. Bill Haley, a resident of Chesapeake, is challenging the incumbent, John Cosgrove, to represent a district that spans Virginia Beach to Isle of Wight County and includes 4 precincts in Portsmouth. Whoever wins that primary is likely the only candidate whose name will appear on the ballot in November. So this is a very important race.
My name is Bill Haley. I'm running for State Senate, the 14th Senate District, which is the southern part of Southampton Roads. I'm running for State Senate because our government's getting too large. I want a smaller government, and a couple big issues I'm running on is school choice, which really brings religious liberties, parental rights to direct your own child's education, and it brings free enterprise into education. Next big issue, the next biggest part of the budget, is welfare. Welfare, we desperately need to help out those truly in need, but how we do it is so terribly important. Right now, the structure of welfare entraps too many people into poverty just by the structure of what we're doing. I want to require a certain number of volunteer hours, or workfare, for what most people call it, and that really trains people up. It makes it a short-term system where people get the need that they need, but they also get trained up very rapidly as they give work to an employer. So they need to be working back into the social services area or to another employer, so they get trained up and they become independent, because that's the goal of any welfare program, is to get people back on their feet. The third big issue is regulatory reform. There's too many ineffective and hostile regulations out here, and we really need to rein in how much regulation there is by bringing some free enterprise principles into the regulatory state. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So would you tell our viewers how you got involved in politics, what you do for a living, and why this particular race?
Okay, that's 3 pretty different questions. Why I got into it. God gave me a passion. No, he did not audibly tell me to go run, but he gave me a very big passion to study the issues. My biggest qualification is a very large and heavy study habit, probably over 20 hours a week. I really dig into the issues. I dig into economics, which my favorite economics person would be Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, Hayek. Those are my people I model my economics from. I study the Constitution. I study a lot of different public policies, and I really am passionate about these issues. So why this race? This is where the power is. You can go to city council, but the city council is pretty much run by the state government. They give you very little leeway of what you're allowed to do. You cannot really change fundamentally what we're doing through the city council. You have a range of things you can do, but that range does not go into what we need to do with school choice or welfare reform. So the state government is where the power is that needs to be done, needs to change. Thank you.
Okay, and what do you do for a living?
Oh, I work as a salesman, Fortune 500 company. I work for Frito-Lay. I call them major accounts. So it's supported me and my wife for 20 years. She got to stay home with my girls, homeschooling them all the way through. And I did some of the courses myself for homeschooling. So That's what I do for a living.
Now, your district is rather large, as you said at the beginning, about
Yes.
200,000 people,
Yes.
and it extends pretty much across the southern part of Hampton Roads. Portsmouth City Watch is interested in essentially issues affecting the city of Portsmouth. How do you see yourself representing those 4 precincts that comprise your district that are Portsmouth based? How will you look out for the interests of Portsmouth residents?
Okay, Portsmouth is no different than the people in Portsmouth. In my opinion, are no different than the rest of the people in my district. There's 4 precincts out of about the 70 precincts I have, and I'm looking out for their rights and their liberties as much as everybody else is. So I don't look at them any differently.
What do you see as the unique challenges for your Portsmouth constituents?
Portsmouth is mainly run by Portsmouth City Council, so I'm very big on letting the City Council run Portsmouth, Chesapeake City Council running Chesapeake, every locality running itself. So I do not like when we have dual responsibilities from the state and the cities. I would like to more split it up and have cities running themselves, and they have their responsibilities, and then let the state have their responsibilities. I want to start separating the responsibilities from cities and states so they're not overlapping so much.
So do you favor more of a home rule approach to government in the Commonwealth?
Oh, absolutely. The government at the smallest level is the best government because we have the most say in that government. We have the most democracy in that government. Most government should be at the family level, individual and family level, but as we go up and when we need governmental as a city, we do as much power in the city as possible over top of the state, and then the state over top of the federal. So I'm a very big 10th Amendment person where we need to pull a lot of the power that the federal government has taken, bring it back to the states, let it go back to the cities, and ultimately a lot of it back to the individual and the families.
You and I chatted off camera about the toll problem at the downtown and midtown tunnels in Portsmouth. This has created a major economic challenge to a city that's already challenged. What do you, as a future member of the state legislature, see as a way to reduce that impact on Portsmouth?
We have historically paid for our roads and our transportation needs by gas taxes and a couple other car taxes and the like. When we take very specific roads that very specific people drive on and we put extra taxes on those, then somebody traveling just 10 miles through one of the tolled tunnels, they have to pay a lot more, while somebody else could be traveling 100 miles a day without going on those tolls, and they're just not paying any extra. So it could be as much as $1,000 a year to do for somebody who is going through the tolls, and somebody else going a lot farther just paying just the regular gas taxes. Just because you pay the tolls does not mean you don't stop paying the gas taxes. So it is unfair to just select certain roads for extra tolls.
So what sort of legislative remedy do you see to help mitigate the toll problem?
Well, we made certain contracts already about the what we already done with the tolls, but I want to start pulling those back when that time frame ends, because we need to go back to a gas tax, paying for the transportation needs system.
So you mean after the 58 years of the current toll agreement ends is when you think would be the right time for changing it, or is there something we can do before then?
We're going to try to almost see if we can try to renegotiate that, put some new legislation in, so we make the people that we made a contract with whole and renegotiate that, because I don't believe that's the correct way to deal with transportation.
Okay. The Commonwealth of Virginia, according to a JLARC study of a couple of years ago, gives certain tax advantages to a variety of taxpayers. And according to their figures, it amounts to about $12 billion a year. The Commonwealth has been short of revenues, and schools and other vital services have suffered. Do you see a way of rationalizing the tax incentive program so that the state has more revenue?
I do not like the tax incentive programs we currently have. Not that I want more taxes going to the state government. I don't think we need that. That $12 billion going on top of the $47 billion. We don't need $59 billion going to the state government revenues. What we need to do is do a lower overall average tax, the tax rate, lower that, and get rid of the tax incentives so everybody gets that tax incentive, not just a select few. That's crony capitalism to a very large degree, and I'm very much for a one low flat rate tax without the tax rate or tax cuts.
Some people will argue that everybody is doing it. For example, with the business development grants that the Commonwealth issues for various types of business, there are criteria, so many employees, so much benefit to the Commonwealth, and so they do give backs based on that. Would that put us at a competitive disadvantage with regard to our neighboring states?
No, I do not think so. There is something in economics called the seen and the unseen. When we give a major tax break to a new company coming in and those incentives there, we see those new businesses coming in. But what we don't see, if we had lowered all the tax rates down 10, 15, even 20% to compensate for not having those, a lot more businesses could come in because the disincentive of the high tax rates right now is harming business creation overall. So it's hard to see the unseen, but we know in economics that when there's less disincentive, business creation comes up in many different ways. So there'll be a lot more business creation, a lot more jobs when you have an overall lower tax rate.
You said that you were involved in homeschooling.
We homeschooled my girls all the way through. They just recently graduated and went through the first year of TCC right now.
What sort of changes in the Commonwealth's education system would have attracted you to public schooling?
There's nothing that would have gotten me into the public school system. I'm a firm believer in parental rights in education. I want to have control over where my children go to school. We ultimately could not afford a private school, so my wife stayed home and I worked extra hard to make the money so that she could stay home. Now, there's no reforms in the public school system that we could do. What we need to do is allow the money to flow with the child. When the money flows with the child, the parents have the ability to take the money that the government would otherwise spend for them in the public school, and it would go into educational savings accounts, or we might be able to try a tax credit system where that compensates people for taking their child out of the public school system so they can afford to send them elsewhere, educate them elsewhere.
Okay, so am I understanding that you're saying there's nothing that can be done by the Commonwealth to improve the quality of public education?
Oh, school choice will definitely improve the quality of education. Competition, when the parents have the ability to move their child somewhere else, the financial ability, and school choice does that, then when children start leaving, the public school will get better just trying to keep those students in the public school system. And if they don't, the private schools are great. They will have to be in competition with other private schools, and they'll be in competition with the public school, and they do a great job too. Whether it's Atlantic Shores, Greenbrier Christian Fellowship, Greenbrier Christian School, whether it's Veritas or Stonebridge. There's a lot of schools around this area that does a great job. So, public school system's not the only place to do education.
How about higher education? What do you see as the way to address the ever-increasing tuition costs?
Honestly, we need to do a lot to get government out of the higher education. The more money that the state gives towards education, whether they're supporting the community college system, or whether they're giving money towards UVA, Virginia Tech, and other colleges around, the higher the tuitions seem to go. The increased tuitions are because of extra funding from the government sector. Now, I know from my girls going through a little bit of financial aid, the federal government's financial aid program, it really pushes the money onto the child. You don't even have to ask for it a lot of times. You sign up for classes and they automatically send you a check. We really need to change that around where the child really knows how much they are borrowing and how much they're getting in the hole for, and they have to actually go after that. And they should be encouraged to try to work their way through a lot of the college versus the government just keeps on throwing money at it. But the more money the government throws at it, the more money the colleges knows they can keep on raising that tuition. So government throwing money at this situation really does not help the matter, does not help keep the tuitions low. It actually increases the tuitions, makes it harder for everybody, because when government supplies money to the system, they first have to take it through taxes, and taxes in itself is a disincentive to create jobs, business creation, and the whole 9 yards. So it really depresses economic activity. So I want to get government more out of the higher education system.
Turning to transportation, or turning back to transportation, we talked about the tolls on the downtown and midtown tunnels. What about the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission that was established a year ago? How do you see it working, and what would your role, if you were appointed as one of the General Assembly representatives on it, what would you see as your role in directing its activities?
I'm not supportive of that group. I'm not supportive of that structure. We currently have a mayor of the city of Chesapeake as the chairman of that group. He's a trained chiropractor. He has a lot of responsibility doing that. He has a lot of responsibility being a mayor. Somebody in that position really needs to know big business. They do really need to know how to do roads. They really need to know how a lot of things work, and it's really not free market. When you're in the free enterprise system, in an endeavor that large, when you're talking about billions of dollars worth of roads funding, it really needs to go, in my opinion, to the free enterprise system, where people hire people based off their experience, based off of their track record, based off their business knowledge and business, basically their track record. So I'm not in favor of just politicians being on there. I know I don't have the experience background. I have some business background, but I don't have that big business background where I could direct everything going with transportation. And they're not even full-time. And from what I understand, they're not even being paid for it. So you have other responsibilities from all these different places, from your city councils to your mayors to your, and then they have other outside jobs, because even mayors are not full-time jobs. So I don't believe they have the time or the expertise to deal with that job adequately, and the free market needs to come in and do some of these jobs.
So ideally, how would you see the governing structure for a local transportation authority that addresses the regional transportation needs?
Well, politicians need to have a role, but I think they need to be appointing people with a track record, with that business background. A politician is a politician. They're not necessarily a big business leader. Not everybody is a Donald Trump who gets into this thing that really knows how to do great deals and negotiate the best way to handle big business. And roads are big business. It's a lot of money flowing through there. So I would rather have appointees of people that have the knowledge base and the experience and the time to do this job adequately. It's oversight by the politicians. I know the Transportation Accountability Board is supposed to be oversight, but they make a lot of big decisions also. And I'd rather have it more pointed out to people who really have expertise in this area.
One of Governor McAuliffe's main issues is expanding Medicaid in the state of Virginia. Would you support it, oppose it, and why?
I would oppose it strongly. The biggest, we won't get into a lot of big different issues here, but I'm very much opposed to money flowing down from the federal government to the state, especially when there's major strings attached. If a state wants to do something, let them collect the taxes, let them put the program out there and pay for it. But when the federal government has the opportunity to offer the states money to do a certain project, it grows government. I'm very much against growing government, and federal money coming down to the states is a way to grow government. It's a very high incentive because you are taxing all of America just for state spending. Now, I know Texas takes money from it. I know all these other states takes money from it. Maybe not Texas, but I'm not sure. But some of the liberal states that are signed up for Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, they're taking a lot of the money. And if we don't take our share, then we lose it. And a lot of people see that as a major incentive, and that's the biggest argument that Democrats have on that issue. It's a very strong argument. But just with like homeschooling, we forego the government funding of our child's education, and we did it ourselves. And our children turned out very well. They're getting very good grades in college right now. We need to do without the federal government's funds, because all that does is grow government, and you have to put incentives into it to grow government more. Medicaid expansion is all about growing government, having more and more people be incentivized to get onto the government dole versus becoming independent. And it really takes the free enterprise out of healthcare and healthcare insurance. So I'd be very much opposed to Medicaid expansion.
The primary that's coming next Tuesday, June 9th, is a Republican primary. The way your district is structured, the odds are that this is the whole enchilada, so to speak.
Yes, it is.
So when November rolls around, whoever wins this primary is likely to be the only candidate on the ballot from the 14th senatorial district.
As it looks right now, that's true. I have not checked with the State Board of Election to see if somebody's went in for independent yet. Mm-hmm. Last time I did check, they were not. And from what I understand, the Democrats are not putting somebody up for that. But there's still time for that till next Tuesday.
Okay. So with that as the landscape, what would you say are the best reasons for the people voting on Tuesday to fire your opponent and hire you for the job?
Well, my opponent started, his name is John Cosgrove, I'll just say his name. He started as a House of Delegate member in 2001. We had a budget of $23 billion. He voted for 3 major tax increases, 2002, 2007, and 2013. And he voted for 14 different budget increases every single year. So every year he voted to increase the budget. Went from 23 billion to 47 billion. Yes, that means it doubled. The household average went from 8,000 to now state politicians alone, not federal, not local, but state politicians alone are controlling $16,000 out of the average household budget. And I just think that is way too much. We need to have a lot more individual control. We need to have a lot less politician control over our lives. So the policies right now are to grow government, whether it's Medicaid expansion, whether it's the road system, whether it's welfare. They're advertising to get more people on welfare. We need to help those in need, but we need to get them quickly out of need by letting them become independent, trained up quickly in a job as they're giving work to an employer, earning some of the self-respect of earning some of the benefits that they're getting until they become independent. And to the people who cannot be fully independent, we need to allow them to give as much worth as they can, whether they have a disability or just so much other responsibility with single parents' homes, that we need to get as much worth out of them as we can, because they need the self-worth of earning the benefits that they're getting. So that's why you should vote for me and not my opponent this coming up Tuesday.
I want to thank you for your time and for the effort that you, like every candidate who runs for office, is putting into getting elected.
Thank you.